so excited. Thank you very much, Marcia, for taking the time to be with us today. Tell us your story.
Well, I've been a swimmer all my life. Like many open water swimmers, let's see, I started swimming before I remember. My parents threw me in a pool. Well, I used to get in pools fully clothed, and so they finally started teaching me how to swim when I was about a year and a half. That was in the mid-60s. I'm 56 years old now. We live in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, and we've been here for 17 years. I started out on the East Coast. I consider myself an East Coaster still. Lived in New York and Connecticut. I was born in Pennsylvania. So I've just, like, swimming has always been part of my life. I swam age group, high school, college for 4 years, and I was really done. I mean, I was just couldn't wait for that last meet to be over. And then 6 weeks later, I really missed it, and I got back in the pool. So I think what it was is I got back in the pool on my own terms. And I had really good high school and age group coaches who taught me strong work ethics. And then after college, I moved to New York and I lived there for several years. I met my husband there, but I found a master's team, and a lot of the swimmers there had done things like swim around Manhattan, and a couple had done the English Channel. And being a young kid on the block, I got dragged to the beach, and I was still pretty fast back then. So I was just introduced to it, and I really loved it. And because master swimming it's an adult sport, you know, you're on your own, and you know, you make up your own rules. But I came across some really good coaches in my master's swimming when I was in New York, Foster De Jesus and Paul Fortul, and they pretty much made me aware of what I was capable of, and then helped me get there. And I did, like, into my early 30s in pool swimming, I did 8 lifetime bests. I mean, that's a lot to be said for, you know, somebody that has swum that long. So I just was, and I was working full time and married, and I just started to embrace what I had. So when I was in New York, I started crewing for people on the Manhattan swim, and I'm sure, Chris, you were in one of those. My first one was 1989, and then I actually got married in September 1990. So my husband didn't want me to swim around in August in 1990 because he wanted me to come back. But the waters are really clean around Manhattan. You'd be very surprised. You know, it's the top 3 feet is what you need in every swim. So I did my first swim my first swim around Manhattan in 1991. And I think, Chris, you got second in that, and Jim Barber was first, and it came down to the touch.
Wow.
But I think I was the first woman and 5th overall. And it was just amazing. I thought it would just be really, really, really hard. And it turned out that it was hard, but I had so much capacity for more. And when I was crossing the World Trade Centers, I was like, you know what? I can do this. This has been a piece of cake. I can swim the English Channel. And so I decided that, you know, in my mind at that point, that I was going to do that. And I trained really hard for the next several years. And I swam the English Channel in 1994, but I did a lot of open water swims in the interim of that. So along the way, there's been a lot of various series that have been concocted and put together. And one of them is the Triple Crown, which it was, I don't even know when it came to be, but I did, so Manhattan is one of the legs, the English Channel is another one of the legs, and Catalina is another one of the legs, the third leg. And I did the, in 2005, two friends and I, Liz Fry and David Blank, we did Catalina together, and we didn't even know there was a Triple Crown, but the combined legs on those, that added up to the fastest Triple Crown in the world. And I don't know that anybody has gone faster than what I did, but anyway, like, you know, there's these prizes that you get along the way that you didn't even know existed.
Right.
Another thing that I did is when I was training to swim the English Channel, there wasn't a lot of resources out there. As Chris had mentioned in his earlier interview, that, you know, we were really on our own. It was, you were writing handwritten letters, you were calling on the phone. There was not the internet. And so I've always been somebody who's kept track of my workouts, every single one of them for a long, long time, since I was 15, actually. And so I just sort of started a journal when I was doing the English Channel. I mean, basically it was just pages out of my logbook. And I was like, you know what, this would make a good resource for other people. And it wasn't so much, and so I wrote a book called Dover Solo, and that's become like the training Bible of the English Channel. And my intentions on that was to capture my thoughts at the time as a memoir, but also to offer it to people so that they can decide what they want to do and how they can have a life and a balance and still train for a major goal. So that was the point of it. And people are still, you know, reading that. And I'm really glad that they're using it as a tool, because with the internet now being so pervasive, you get a lot of people who are resident experts right out of the blocks, and it concerns me a bit. So excuse me, I did a lot of open water swims. After the English Channel, I was sort of like, what's next? Because we didn't really have this national or international circuit like we do now. I met a lot of people on the beach in England, but it wouldn't have occurred to me to go to Australia to swim some of their swims. So I decided to do Manhattan the next year, and then I did it the year after that. And then in 1998, we had our first child, Julia, and she's 22. She just graduated from college. She swam for 4 years at Kenyon. Go ladies, go lords. Yeah. You know, kind of a difficult end to the college career for all of these kids. But, and I actually swam in a swim meet 9 days before she was born.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, but it was fun. You know, it was like, it's really great. And people have just seen her grow up. And I love that. And then almost 3 years later, our son Sam was born in December 2000. So I had a lot going on in my life. We were in Connecticut at the time, and, you know, I got interested, and involved in being a mom, but I still managed to swim somewhat. I was able to do what I could do. And like when I did Catalina in 2005, I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could get all my workout done to get home in order to, you know, do everything that I needed to do during the daytime, you know. And it's like when my 8-year-old is going to bed before I'm going to bed before her is a little weird. So I did, in 2005, did Catalina, and then 2008, I swam the shoreline in Chicago, which is the swim that Kevin Murphy had turned me on to. And that was a great swim. David Blank and I did that with one of my swim friends here in Chicago, Chris Layton. And again, I got up really early in the morning to do my training. And it was a long, hard swim. It was 26 miles, but it was just a great experience. So, then in 2011, I swam Anacapa with Chris Layton. And so it's just like, it's so much of the balance for me. And then from about 2011, the next major swim I did was in 2017. So my swimming career, I think, has come in 2 parts, and maybe it'll be the 3rd part after a coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
Because like, who knows how long this is going to last, and when we're going to be, you know, able to resume what regular swimming that we used to be able to do. But so between about 2011 and 2017, I mean, even those earlier years, I had it on simmer. And that's the only way I could live with myself, knowing that I had a lot of more capacity in me, but I just didn't have the time and the resources to be able to do major swims, because I really had to, you know, be the mom that I wanted to be with my children. And my husband traveled internationally a lot too. So a lot of this was on me.
Yeah.
So when Julie was in high school, like junior and senior in high school, I was like, you know, sitting at 3 and 4 day swim meets, you know, because she only lives once. And so I had to do that stuff, and it was okay. But I was like, you know what, when she goes to college, I'm going to see if I can get back into this. So when she went off to college, you know, I cried a river. I really missed her. And I lost 2 of my other training swimming pals that summer too, because they moved away for various reasons. So I was really bummed. But I decided then I was going to do Lake Tahoe. And because I just wanted to see if I could do something that, you know, some lesser known swim that would let me know if I could continue to swim at the level that I used to swim. So I did that, and I mentioned that to Liz Fry, and in her very Liz Fry way, because she's the director of Swim Across the Sound. She goes, well, you know, that swim's only 3 weeks before Tahoe, and so why don't you do that? I'm like, okay, fine. And that was a really hard swim. I mean, it's just you really got to slog it out, but it's for such a great cause. They raise funds for families' living expenses, whether the person themselves or the family is under financial duress due to cancer. And it's like they'll drive you to your appointments, so they'll cover your gas bill or light bill or whatever. And it's just such a great thing. And I'm really, really glad for that experience, having done that. And then 3 weeks later, I turned around and I did Lake Tahoe, and I was okay. And I started to set my sights on some more bigger swims, because I actually realized I had the ability to continue to do this, but I also had the time to do it too. And my son is a runner, and he's a pretty good runner. So we, you know, I was able to balance everything out. So it was, everybody got a little bit of a piece, including me. So then I did the North Channel in 2018. So that was the year after Tahoe and the Swim Across the Sound. And that was a real difficult swim, in the sense that it's just so cold for so long, and there's just jellyfish everywhere. And that is not a swim that you can take lightly. I mean, none of the marathon swims are ones that you can take lightly. They're all hard. It's just a matter of degree of challenge. And I had an okay day. I didn't have a perfectly flat day, but it was 15 hours in 53-degree water with jellyfish everywhere. It was really, really challenging on that. But I just kept going. I mean, Liz had told me before, I mean, she hadn't even done North Channel at that point. She goes, just keep swimming, Marcia. And I just remember, I just kept on saying that to myself. So I just kept going, and I got there. And then, let's see, there's been a couple other ones since then. Last summer I did a swim in Japan between the South Island, the main island, and the North Island, and that went pretty well too. So I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'm certainly looking forward to getting back into top training form once the pandemic is over.
Yeah.
But something that's been nice is that I live about 1.5 miles from Lake Michigan. So I'm certainly not the fastest by any means, but I have, you know, I tell people to do things and they actually do them. So we have about 50 or 60 people on a regular basis that show up at a training beach, all socially distanced and appropriate. And we've been swimming since started in the beginning of May when the water was 48. And people who are pool swimmers who don't want to pay the astronomically expensive rates that are being charged for pool access right now are starting to realize that, you know, open water is really fun and I really like this. And the water temperature is like in the mid 70s right now. So it's been fun to help other people with that.
Yeah.
So now I'll come up for air. What other questions you want to ask me?
I'm curious. First of all, I love connecting with a marathon swimmer with kids, so thank you for connecting
I've done
with
that.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually ask the question of how do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim? But I'm curious, especially over, you know, all of your history. It's been so long. So has that changed at all for you?
Absolutely. So I am somebody that has had two very different experiences. You know, when I first started marathon swimming, when I was 27 in 1991, I did a 10-mile race before I did Manhattan called Candlewood Race in Connecticut. And I wrote my obituary in that race. I was going to die. I mean, I knew that this was it. And I had no idea, like, the capacity that I had, and I should just have shut up and kept going. So, you know, it was definitely all about me in, you know, in the beginning, and it was easy to be all about me because it was about me, and it was just my husband, and, you know, I was training 9 times a week and running 40 miles a week, and I did two marathons during that time. And I didn't have a care in the world. You know, I had a great job. I had a really good boss, everything. It was all about me and it was okay. And on my swims, it was my husband and some close friends who were always, who were my crew. So I could say anything I wanted to. And it was, you know, I was good because I was able to have all these resources. And I always knew that we were going to have children, or we always knew, and it definitely changed my life in the sense my reactions have changed, and I'm much more balanced, and I'm more careful about what I say to my crew because I understand the power of language. And I also have, you know, just having the patience. Because, you know, Marcia from 1991 would not have made the North Channel in 2018. I would have been crying and whining and being bitten by another jellyfish, and this isn't fun. So it's definitely, I have become a lot more patient, probably a lot more welcoming to a lot of other people. Not to say that I wasn't before, but I'm, you know, the person now who's sheepdogging back to get the slowest person or to get somebody who's off course and yell at them in a very nice way to say, don't ever do that again. So it's just, I'm definitely pretty more balanced and capable. I mean, certainly over 28 years, you know, it's like been, 29 years now. I certainly have, you know, I'm not as fast as I used to be, and that's certainly okay, understandable. But it's just nice to share it more with people now than to have them feel like they have to have some sort of punch card in the membership club. And it's been fun, especially with this pandemic. You know, that's got to be the flower that I take from this whole thing, because it certainly has inconvenienced, you know, the swimming plans that I had and the swimming plans that I had for a lot of the group that we swim with. So yeah, the way that I've also always, you know, completing a marathon swim, I would have to say the first emotion is relief that everything worked out, because there's so many things that can go wrong. And I'm just grateful and relieved that I make it. And that has not changed, actually. But then there's also the feeling of like, wow, that was awesome. I just did that. I was able to pull my body across that body of water, and that was amazing. And I remember crawling up onto the shore in Scotland. And this swim had not gone well at all when I did the North Channel. You know, just there was a lot of things that went wrong that I completely take on for myself. You know, it's all on me if something goes wrong. And I just remember, oh my God, I can stop now. Just because I would have kept going, but it was just so hard. And it was just the relief that I could stop. So I would have to say that there was a lot of, you know, that is something that I think that people who are new to the sport don't quite understand, the relief that comes with something that you know, all those times you got up 4 o'clock in the morning to do all your training, you know, all those car accidents you narrowly avoided, you know, all the little birthday parties you had to go to for your little children when you should have been training, all the crap that you had to do, you know, the airplane ride that you managed to get on and, you know, leave the instructions for grandma as you're leaving the kids and the worry and everything. And it all worked out. And it's just like, it's relief.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell us about the swim you're most proud of?
You know, there's a lot, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a struggle to get to the water just because you know, for whatever's going on in my life.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple. I mean, the North Channel was definitely one of the ones that the now Marcia is very proud of. It was just so hard and the water was so cold. And that's the first time that I ever don't remember what happened. So for about the last 2 hours, and I don't remember if it's I don't remember, but because I was just going and going and going and going. But the 45 minutes from after I finished to what happened, I don't remember what happened because I asked my husband and he's like, no, like this is what happened, Marcia, and I have no recollection of that. But just with the jellyfish and just the cold water, and it's so pervasive. You just can't, you know, you can manage that for 6 hours, but 15 hours absolutely took me to my max. That was pretty much my max. I mean, I have so much respect for Caroline Block, who's attempting a 2-way. God bless her. You know, good luck, and I hope it works out. It's just so hard. But I also think that I had the experience in life at that point to just keep going and to know that I just needed to keep swimming, turning one arm over the other. Another that it just comes to mind is that when I was returning to the sport at a high level, it was a swim across the Sound, which is it's a swim with Liz Fry as the race director. And it was a rough day. We had a late start because the weather was bad. So the tide didn't do what it was supposed to do. And I remember swimming sort of in place. And I had a really good boat pilot and everyone was trying. And I just remember, don't look up at all ahead because it doesn't matter. You're just going to keep going until you get there anyway. So what happened is I just kept my head down. I just kept going. And I don't even know if we were going forward because I haven't seen the chart of the course. But I started thinking about, you know, Marcia, you're not, you know, when you're done with this, and it took, I think it was like 9:26 or something like that. So it was like much longer than anybody anticipated for anything. And I was actually the first solo finisher.
Wow.
So, and there were only 3 out of about 8 of us that started that day. I mean, it was a really rough day. So I just said, put your head down. And then I started thinking like, you know, you only have to deal with this for however long, but people who have cancer and everything, and that's what this event is all about, they're thrown up in a garbage can right now up on that hill in Connecticut where you're swimming towards. And they're going to do that tonight, and then they're going to do it tomorrow, and then they're going to do it the next day, and they can't stop this. So I stopped thinking about myself, and I just was just like, yeah, you know, this is a great cause, and I'm just going to continue to move myself forward because I'm not inconvenienced right now, and I'm doing this for some people who really need this support. So I just kept going. You know, there's another swim too that I'm proud of. It's not so much for myself, but it was for the community that what I was representing at the time. And I was the chair of USMS swimming, US Masters Swimming, the long distance committee for 4 years. And before that, I was the vice chair. So in 2009, there was a swim in Canandaigua Lake, and some lifeguard, 16-year-old lifeguard, you know, halfway through the lake says, "Oh, I heard thunder," you know, way, way off there. And the race was called, and it was a staged race. So people had been, like, they let the youngsters off first, and then the 30 years old, the 40 years old. So it was staged like that. So the oldest people are going off last. And if it's a national championship, people are flying in from all over the world or from the United States for this lake up near Cornell in the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. So the race is called, and I am the representative for US Masters Swimming there, and I don't know that it's been called. So two things that have happened. So because I was in my 40s, I was like in the third or fourth wave, so I actually finished the race. And I get to the finish line, and I see people who are in their 60s on the shore, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And I said, we've got to figure out how to place this race right now. And without any sort of, you know, plan here, I came up with something that worked right away. Now, there was something else that happened in that race. And there was a gal who, we were swimming kind of neck and neck, and we get to the last buoy, and it was half a mile to the finish. And I said, listen, we can either kill each other getting to the finish, or we can tie on this. And she said, well, it doesn't matter because I lost my race bracelet early on. Somebody kicked it off. And we were in the same age group. I said, let's finish together. And this is before I even knew that the race had been called. I said, let's walk over to the timer's desk. I'm going to vouch for you that we swam this together, and we're going to tie, and that we came in on the same time. And this is somebody who's exactly the same as me, like, you know, a mom. I think she drove in from Syracuse at like 2 o'clock that morning. And so we tied. You know, it was just like, I could have done the crappy thing of saying, well, that's too bad for you. But that type of sportsmanship certainly helps everybody in the community. So getting back to the other part of the race, what I did is I placed everybody who had actually finished the course into like basically a little bullpen. And the way that they were ranked was whatever place they finished in their age group. And everybody who did not finish the course got tied for one place down. So if 4 people finished the course in an age group, everybody else in the race was going to be tied for 5th. And I got some heat for the people who were not there, who didn't know what the heck was going on. But it certainly gave me a good insight to saying sometimes people have to make decisions right on the spot, and you can't question them because you weren't there.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd have to say that, you know, that was a race that I'm proud of because I helped other people out. And I was probably the only one at that race, no less in the country, who could have put together that type of plan with about 30 seconds notice.
Right.
And that comes from experience. And that comes from everybody, allowing everybody to win a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Is there anything that you haven't finished?
I got laundry to fold upstairs if you want to help out with that later. You know, there's just like Chris and Liz and Marcy McDonald and Nora, we will always have more swims to swim. There's always more swims out there. You know, I've only ever gotten out of one race because it was just, this was even before the English Channel. It was a horrible day for me, but it was also a horrible day in the conditions, and it just wasn't happening. So you know, there's always stuff out there that I've got my eye on, and, you know, and then things pop up too. So those are, you know, yes, there's always going to be things that I haven't finished.
Yeah. Is there any swim that you started that you weren't able to complete?
Well, that was the one that I mentioned. It was 1994, and it was USA Nationals, and it was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I have no good memories of that place because it was like it was like 5 to 8 foot seas.
Oh, wow.
And it just like, things were not coming together, and I was at a bad point in my mental life, and I was starting to do the math that if I stayed in to finish the course, we would miss our airplane, and that's always a bad sign. I'm like, not today.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. How do you get through the tough situations in a swim?
Oh boy. You know, there's so, you know, every swim has a little bit of a tough part to it.
Sure.
I often think about, you know, like, I'm only going to be given one chance to do this for the most part, and let me make the most of it. And I think that's where some patience comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I do that's a little bit more practical than that is I count strokes.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay, just count 300 more strokes. And it's interesting because Marcia McDonald and I used to swim a lot together when we were in Connecticut. And when I moved out to Chicago, I mean, we swim a little bit every once in a while, but like not nearly like we used to. And we actually developed the same count pattern independently of each other without even knowing it. Which it just is like, I don't know, it's like evolution, you know, somebody grows, you know, some animal grows up on an island and somebody grows up in somewhere else, and you also come down to the same thing. So I'll put my head down. Like last summer in Japan, the current is really, really strong. And I remember, like, I was kept on lifting my head to see, you know, oh, is the land any closer? And I'm like, shut your mouth and just put your head down and don't look up for 500 strokes. And I'm about 1 stroke per yard. So, you know, it made a difference. And then I did it again. And so I think it's like when it gets really hard, having that mental fortitude to be able to focus on what the most important thing is. Mm-hmm. And another, you know, so that's when hard things are, is I'm able to just put my head down. Another one was when I was doing Lake Tahoe, and Lake Tahoe is swum primarily in the dark, and it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. And there was some problems with the boat that I'm not going to go in with, but they had to stop, and I kept swimming, and I was essentially swimming just guided by the lights of Reno, which were a dim glow off. And here I am, I'm literally over the deepest part of the lake, which is 1,600 feet, pitch black, everything. I have a light stick on my butt, and I've got a headlight on my head. And I just kept going because I'm like, I don't need to stop. And the boat caught up with me like 5 minutes later, but I didn't waste a lot of time worrying about them because this was the opportunity I had to do my swim. So I was just going to keep going. And afterwards, you know, the guy who was Dave Van Morik, who's a great guy, you know, we were talking about the swim at dinner the next night, and he's like, Marcia, you got grit. I don't know how many people would have done that in a dark lake. And it was like, it didn't even occur to me. I just keep going. I'm just a regular person as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So that's some of, you know, getting away in the hard things is, you know, just keep going.
Yeah. We're starting to run out of time, and I feel like I have a million more questions to ask, but I'll try to round it out with just a couple more. How can we include more people in the sport?
You know what, for those of us in Chicago right now, I think it's, you know, having the lake and being introduced to the open water swimming, and to have the pandemic here where this is your only opportunity to swim.
Mm-hmm.
I think swimming with other people to get people over the fear, because let's see, I've been swimming open water for like 35 years. And I think probably the first 33 of them, I was petrified that I was going to get eaten by something, or, but it's the matter of introducing people to the water. Sometimes it's having a clinic,
mm-hmm.
or rounding up people and saying, hey, there's going to be 50 of us that we're going to go and swim at the lake. I hope you'll come. And the place where I selected our group to swim at this summer is really shallow, because we could have gone to another beach that gets deep really fast. And I didn't want people to get nervous in that respect. But I think by introducing people and getting people over the fear of open water, because you can't touch the bottom. Sometimes you can't see the bottom. Having clinics. My friend Chris Layton and I, who I've done several swims with, he and I do clinics right before big shoulders in Chicago every year, and it really, really helps people to just calm them down. And I've done a lot of clinics in open water, and just helping people to know, like, you're going to be okay. Those buoys, those safe swimmer buoys are awesome too. And I wear one all the time when I'm training.
Yeah, that's good. A good one. What advice would you give to aspiring marathon swimmer, other than to read your book, of course?
Yeah, that's good. I guess it's still on Amazon and all that. Just to be patient and to be humble. And, you've got to know that this is hard. Open water swimming is not pool swimming. It's not going to be a 50 freestyle where you put your head down and boom, it's over. This is for people who are willing to get dirty and stay in there for a little longer. It also requires training where, your conditions change, and you have to have, being willing to get swallowed water and getting hit in the face by waves. And if you're in salt water, dealing with marine life, and being safe and humble about what you're doing, and not letting your ego get out for you, swimming in a safe spot, working up to a swim instead of deciding, wow, I'm good at the such and so I'm going to be great at this longer distance or so. So I would say that it's just a matter of just understanding, if you're a novice swimmer, then be like a novice, even though you might know the mechanics that are involved here.
Mm-hmm. Last question, especially curious about this one, about the 35-year-long career. What marathon swimmers inspired you?
Well, you know what? It's, you always have your Gertrude Italy and Marilyn Bell and Florence Chadwick out there. But what was kind of cool is that when open water swimming started getting popular, there was people like Chris Rutford out there, and and then there was Marcy McDonald and Liz Fry and Nora Toledano and Tammy Van Weiss and Shelley Taylor, and we all started around the same time, overlapping by several years, and we sort of grown up together. And a lot of them either didn't have families, so they were able to keep swimming a lot, or they did have families and then resumed their training and all like that. So we've been really inspirational for each other, and that is just so fun to have that core of friendships of people that go back for so long, and that you wouldn't have any problems picking up the phone and calling them, even if you haven't talked to them for years and years. And I love the people in open water swimming. I love the people in swimming in general. And so, hearing other people and just knowing what they've been involved in. So it's just, being inspired by my own peers a lot of the times, and actually hearing that people are inspired by me, which just totally floors me. Oh, always. I'm like, wow.
Oh, but you are an inspiration. Thank you so much for your time today, Marcia. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good luck to all of you, and I hope everything works out for everybody. And let's get a vaccine going.
Yeah, so we get back to it. Agreed. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.